Here's a quick summary of the nervous system just to kind of get you back on track again before we move on to some other parts of it. And it is truly amazing all the things that your nervous system does in terms of coordinating your activities. It's the world's biggest supercomputer, to say the least, as it millions and millions of bits of data are constantly going back and forth. And there's the definition. I'm not going to read it through. We went through this before, but you can slow it down if you want to. So essentially there are two parts of the nervous system, and there's the central nervous system, and there's peripheral nervous system. Remember, peripheral means at the edges type of things. You want to keep that in context. And here we have a nice diagram of the nervous system where we have the central nervous system, which is the brain and spinal cord, and the peripheral system, which are all these nerves coming towards and going away from the nervous system, the central nervous system. Okay, so the brain and the spinal cord are the two parts of the central nervous system, both critically important, obviously, but we tend to spend a lot more time on the brain. And in a little bit later, we'll talk about the different parts of the brain and what some of the major functions are, the cerebrum, cerebellum, medulla oblongata, etc., those type of things. Then, of course, the spinal cord. And the spinal cord goes from the brainstem on down to your tailbone, basically. And you can see in some detail here all the different vertebrae, and that's why when people sever something high, they may be quadriplegic. Lower down, maybe only lose just their legs type of thing. And if you actually look at a little detail of your spinal column, you'll notice that there is a spinal cord within this kind of protective barrier of the bones. Okay, now the peripheral nervous system connects the central nervous system to the outside, and it also brings information from the outside to the inside. And so what we have here is that the sensory organs, which pick up information from outside and bring it to you to process, and then if you act on that, you send it out from the central nervous system to another part of your body. So again, eyes, ears, pain receptors, nose, etc. That's your receptors. We'll talk in a little more detail about them. And the things they go to are only really essentially two things. So when you react to something and duck as a ball is coming at you, you're using your muscles. Or if you start salivating because there's food presence, that's a gland. So those are the two that things react. Again, just another picture of brain, peripheral nerves, spinal cord, nice picture. And here's some of the more detail of all, because we always think about the nervous system like, oh yeah, just sight and sound and hearing, etc. But it also picks up information about the carbon dioxide level in your blood, how much sugar is in your blood, or what's going on, what's the pH in your digestive system. All these things get picked up internally. So the basic function or the basic, I should say, unit of function of your nervous system is a neuron. And it's just a fancy way of saying a nerve cell. And there's the axons, the dendrite, the neuron body or cell body, the myelin sheath, and the nucleus. Now there's other parts, but these are the major ones that I want you to know something about. And because remember, the neurons are always taking information in or sending information out. When they send information out, it goes out via the axon. And an easy way to remember that is exit axon. And the dendrites out here, there's several of them here, they take in the information. The cell body is just a fancy name for the largest part of where most of the cytoplasm is. You already know kind of what the nucleus is all about in terms of containing most of the DNA of the cell and controlling most of the activities. And there's this interesting thing here called the myelin sheath. It's like these little nodes here, and you'll probably learn more detail about that in a later course. It has a couple functions. It protects the signal, and it also speeds up the signal, both very important. And there, of course, is another picture of the nervous system with the peripheral and the central nervous system. And when we talk about the neurons, there's three different basic types of neurons. You can see there's sensory, motor, and interneurons. And the sensory neurons, as the name would imply, the sense organs pick something up and they take that from that peripheral part of your body to your central nervous system. And so if you touch something hot, you go ouch, and that's because you have a receptor here and sensory neurons that bring it up to your brain where you feel. Because remember, you taste, feel, smell, all those things happen in your brain. So again, carry nerve impulse from a sense organ to the central nervous system. Or if you taste something sour in your tongue, it goes to your brain. That's, again, the same type of idea. Or if you smell something funky, same idea. These are sensory neurons. And then motor neurons just kind of do the opposite of sorts. They take information from the central nervous system to an effector. And again, what's an effector? Well, an effector is either a muscle or a gland. So you see something coming at you, like say Godzilla, and you run away. And in order to do that, you have to use your effectors. Let's see. We're not going to worry too much about that. Then the last type of neurons are called the interneurons, sometimes called associative neurons, and these make up the majority of your spinal cord and central nervous systems. In other words, in your brain. So in other words, it's your central nervous system. And here's the big picture, and this is probably one of the more important parts, actually. So that let's say you have some stimulus, and a stimulus is anything that your sense receptors can pick up, whether that's be sound, light, mechanical waves in terms of hearing, or even internal things, chemistries, taste, smell, whatever. Those are external, but internal, all those type of things. And what the stimulus does is it gets picked up by some type of receptor. Of course, your eyes, ears, and internal touch receptors, pain, proprioceptors, all different types of receptors, which then send that signal to your peripheral nervous system. And the connection between here and which makes up is going to be your sensory neurons. And they send that information signal to your central nervous system, to your spinal cord, your brain. And then you either act on that or you may process it. So for example, if you're reading this, you go, oh, CNS. And signals coming from your eye, that's your receptor, your peripheral nervous system, the sensory neurons, up to your brain. And then your brain goes, okay, sensory neurons, I'm going to put that to memory somewhere. You may not act on it, but that's the way that works. However, if you do act on something, let's say I'm going to write CNS on a sheet of paper. Well, in order to do that, you have to send a signal from your brain to your muscles to make that happen. And that's where the second part comes in, which is you send that signal from your central nervous system via motor neurons to the peripheral nervous system and then to an effector. And again, an effector is going to be a muscle or a gland or something along those lines. And so when you get done, you have a stimulus reaction possibly, but in order to have that happen, you have to go through this whole process of these different parts here. Again, using receptors, PNS, CNS, PNS again, and then back the effector. So here's the typical one where you touch something high, you go, yo, and you pull your hand away. And really what's happening there is that, again, you're using a receptor, pain receptor. The signal then goes up via your arm to your, possibly to your spinal cord, clearly, into your brain. And again, this part would be your sensory neurons, bring that up. And then we'll talk a little bit later about a reflex. And what happens is another signal then directly goes back to your muscles here, and your muscles contract and you pull your hand away. At the same time, another impulse is still traveling up here to your brain going like, ouch, that hurts. And so that's an example of a stimulus reaction using sensory and motor neurons. Though we always kind of focus on the external type of things, but let's say you had this nice greasy hamburger and french fries, which looks pretty good actually, and you ingest that, it goes down your esophagus, as you know, ends up in your stomach, and you have chemical receptors in your digestive system which pick up on things. And so this goes like, oh, there's a lot of fat here. And of course, this chemical receptor picks up the information, sends it to your brain, and your brain goes, oh, there's fat. Not that you're thinking about that, but this is all happening subconsciously. And then a signal may go back to your liver to produce more bile. It may go to your pancreas to produce more lipase. It may go to your gallbladder to release bile. Remember, those all have one thing in common, that they help digest and break down fats and things. So that's pretty much the big story here. I'm going to end it.